How's it going, everybody? Damon Serafino here in studio with
Clay Barrow.
Clay. How you doing today?
Good, dude. I'm solid. Yeah, excited to record this one.
Yeah.
Be fun.
Okay, I want to start us off with a story. Big surprise.
Okay.
So about I don't know, like a year and a half ago now-ish, little less. I went to Ireland. I interned at Red Rocks Church, and we didn't get paid for 9 months. So they're like, instead of paying you, we're gonna take you on a trip to Europe.
Deal.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, it was awesome.
Mm.
And our trip was in Northern Ireland with a church that Red Rocks partnered with. And we're in Northern Ireland, and apparently Connor Grimm, who was the pastor of Young Adults at the time, now the lead pastor of Cornerstone in Austin, he's like, yeah, we're going to do a workout on Tuesday morning, and it's going to be super light. I know a lot of y'all don't work out. And I'm like, dang, bro, don't got to call us out.
Wow.
And it's going to be a super light workout. And we get to this gym, and it's not your normal gym. I'm like, why does it look so different? And Connor goes, oh, this guy trained some of the best UFC fighters
my
in the world and in Ireland. And I'm like,
Conor McGregor.
I don't know, maybe.
Possibly.
Who knows? And we do this the hardest work I may have ever done. I played football before. That was hard. I've done cross country, ran 13 miles. No, this was the hardest workout I'd ever done. Granted, I hadn't
Jeez.
worked out in like 4 months either, so maybe even longer, 8 months. Yeah, definitely 8 months. I wanted to make it seem better. No, it had been probably about 8 months since I like consistently worked out. And dude, I could not walk the rest of the trip.
Oh
I
my
was like,
gosh.
there's these videos. I was bullied by my intern friends who are like my brothers and sisters at this point, still are to this day. I could barely walk. I was like limping around, and everyone was
Gosh.
saying these terrible comments all week. And it made me think, though, what's the line of kindness like to other? Because what if someone else who is not a Christian overheard us and just being a bully to me? Granted, it didn't really hurt my feelings because I thought it was hilarious, and honestly, I should have been working out. But what about what's the line like when it comes to like this banter and kindness? What is kindness?
No, that's good. Yeah, that's really good. So yeah, today we're talking about kindness. I think of Proverbs 19:22 in the New King James.
Shout out Proverbs again.
Yeah, again, every single week. And it's what is desired in a man is kindness. And so I really wanted to break down, what does that mean? What's that talking about? And I think that kindness shows a lot of gratefulness, humility. It's about serving others. It's not all about me, me, me. It's about others. And so we wanted to dive deep and give some practical wisdom on being kind to others.
Yeah, the first place I wanted to take us to is, I think sometimes, like you said, kindness is like serving. And I think sometimes we have this like me-focused agenda. And the thing that you brought up earlier this week was live uninterruptible. And what does it mean to live uninterruptible? It's a way to show kindness, you've said. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think that when you're going about your day-to-day life, rushing from one thing to the next, and then someone comes up to you and like interrupts you and gets you out of that rhythm, it can be very stressful. And I think that as Christians, we should strive to be interruptible and stop and talk to those people. I think of Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer.
Yeah, I love the book.
Yeah, and he talks about like not rushing from one thing to the next, but slowing down a little bit, just gathering your thoughts, collecting your thoughts. I think that like our culture today, they want to rush you so fast to get to the next thing, to the next, to the next, to the next, where part of being kind is being interruptible. I think of like, we both have volunteers. I do production and you do youth. And sometimes volunteers will come up and they want to talk and they want to like talk about their week. They want to ask about our week. And sometimes it's like, I don't really want to do that right now. I want to rush to this next thing. But I think that as Christians and as people who try to be kind, we should have conversations with those people, because who knows, maybe they're going through something. Maybe they need to talk about something in their life, something that they're struggling with, and maybe they need prayer. And I think that if we're rushing from one thing to the next, we're going to miss those opportunities to help people out through what they're going through.
Yeah, you just said so much wisdom there. I think with your last point with volunteers, for those who are in church ministry or leadership or even running a team, is that our goal is Ephesians 4:12 is to equip the saints for ministry. Is that you're not there running a camera because you guys are like what, 5-6 cameras?
Yeah, it's crazy. At our main location. No, we're at 9 actually.
Bro,
we have
what?
9 cameras.
I don't know.
It's insane.
I just unfollowed the podcast. 9? That doesn't seem very biblical. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All for the glory of God. But those are 9 people running cameras, and someone's on the video switcher and this and that. So your
Facts.
goal is to be like, for our ministry pastors and all that stuff, anyone who's
Mhm.
listening or is aspiring to be, is that your goal is to like be slow and like pastor those people who are then gonna do all the work.
Yeah, facts. I think of there's this one girl that comes to mind, and she's a volunteer pretty much every week. And at about the time that I tore my Achilles, I think she like half tore it or something. So it's still like a big injury. And I don't know how she did it, but I want to say it was like skiing or something. But anyways, she half tore it. And so this whole entire time we've been talking to each other like, how's your recovery? How's your
Mhm.
recovery? And it seems like whenever I'm rushing from one thing to the next, she wants to talk about this injury.
Mhm.
And I'm like, man, she works so hard. She's there every single week. The least I can do is stop and talk to her and be like, "Man, how's your physical therapy going?" And then she asked me like, "How's your physical therapy going?" And just checking in on each other, like seeing, how's it feel to walk? Just taking it slow and having that conversation with her. And I can tell that like that means so much to her, and also it means a lot to me too, to have someone else who's struggling in the same way that I am, and we can just talk to each other and help each other through what we're going through. And I think, like, if I wasn't interruptible, I would just rush past, and she wouldn't wanna volunteer anymore because she doesn't feel like people care
I
about
was
her.
gonna say that, yeah.
Uh-huh.
No one wants to serve for a leader who doesn't care,
Mhm.
like, honestly, and
Facts.
I think God's kingdom is people focused. That's one thing I've been learning as a perfectionist, or as I would say an ex-perfectionist. I'm trying to die to it.
Mm,
And someone who's just very, like, goal and vision driven. If you are trying to build this awesome thing, not even ministry, right? You're trying to build a business,
mhm,
or I don't know what else you can build. I don't know what other things you can build, a business or
mhm,
anything out in the world, is that if you're so focused on the task at hand and you miss the people, then I feel like you're missing the whole point of God's kingdom. That's a
mhm,
rude awakening that I've experienced in my life, is that sure, it's, you want like the perfect like system and whatnot,
mhm,
but if you're not focused on the people that are helping you run the system, then it's you failed. That's like, I feel like, and obviously there's grace within that, but I feel like when I've started focusing on people, that like the ministry has been so much healthier. And then another thing I wanted to go back on is about rushing from point A to point B. There's some awesome practicals in John Mark Comer's book. One of the things that he says is like, it's crazy. He says like, drive the speed limit.
yeah,
And so I don't do it all the time, but when I do, I find so much peace in that.
mhm,
And he says, hey, when you're at the grocery store, intentionally get in the longest line
mhm,
and don't scroll. Or if
yeah,
you're at the doctor's office, show up early
mhm,
and don't scroll. And all these like little things. And what I've come to find when doing these like little practical things, and he has like 100 practicals in that book. It's one of the most practical books ever.
such a good book.
What I've seen in that is the Holy Spirit, one, has given me so much more peace, because you have to intentionally build your schedule where you can't, instead of doing 100 things in a day, you're only able to do like 40.
Mhm,
And actually, that's what I think Jesus wants from us in this like Western culture. It's like go, 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 and rush and complete and all this stuff. Like so many people are like working a full-time job and doing like full-time school and this and this and this. And I think God just wants us to slow down and hear from him. But also too, in those 10 minutes, you get to be like the church in those 10
mhm,
minutes. I've had so many gospel conversations with people who, if I was rushing from point A to point B, I'd be so focused on like getting to an appointment and getting this done and getting this done and getting this done, where every day now I get to have like a gospel conversation with you because I'm just slowed down and I'm interruptible. And sure, maybe I didn't get to do everything I needed to do that day
mhm,
that I wanted to get done. But I think there's things that God wants to get done for his kingdom, and showing his love, showing his grace, his mercy, his kindness to people who are alienated off, who don't know Jesus, who have had church hurt, yada, yada, yada. And I think
yeah.
when we're slow, like all these other doors open up that we would have never planned.
Yeah, yeah. Back about a year ago, I was walking in our church and I was looking around, seeing the different people who were there. And I saw this guy, he was like a giant, way bigger than anybody else. And I looked a
Goliath.
little bit closer, Goliath, yeah, he close to it. Yeah, he was close. And I look again and I realize that it's Brian Shaw, who's like 4-time world's strongest man. He's
Bro, just
ginormous.
casually in your church?
Yeah, he's just in our church. Yeah, and I knew that he was in the area, but I didn't know that he attended church at all. And I think it was his first time at my church. I go to Orchard Church, work production there for those of you that don't know. And so I'm like, dude, I have to talk to this guy. And so I go and talk to him, and he was the nicest guy. And for someone who's like so famous, and I'm sure like whenever I see him at our church, he's being interrupted by so many different people. People want to get to know him, they want pictures with him. He's like a celebrity
They want that
basically.
bag.
Yeah, and so I go up and talk to him, and I was like, "Man, thank you so much for your YouTube. It's so inspirational. Like, I watch you all the time." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, thank you. Like, thanks for watching. Like, it's nice to meet you." And he was asking about me, asking what I do at the church, getting to know me. So interruptible and so kind. And for someone who's like a celebrity and that happens to them all the time, I think he did such an amazing job of being interruptible. And I think that that's what we should strive to do, with me and you, with our volunteers, or who knows, like people on the streets, people that we don't know, people at YA. I think it's so important to be interruptible and kind. And I think of the life of Jesus. I was talking to Dwayne, he was actually giving a devotional, and he was talking about how Jesus, he was completely interruptible. He would have gone to that person who was sitting in the corner of the church with no friends, and he would have gone and
Come on,
talked
say
to them.
it. Say it.
And so I think that that's so inspirational to us, and someone to, Jesus is the perfect person who walked the earth, and to see how he lived his life, I think that that can be so beneficial to us, and just remind us, like, yeah, be interruptible. Go talk to the person that nobody's talking to. Get to know them. Figure out their story.
Mhm.
Yeah, just get to know them.
And think of the flip side. It's like, why kindness, right? We know
Mhm.
kindness is God's kingdom, and we're gonna get a little more of the deeper in a second here.
Mhm.
But imagine if Brian Shaw had the opposite response, and it was cold and was
Right.
shallow and didn't have the strong character and humility. That's where the negatives comes in. It's like I think a lot of times where God's way is really the better way
Mhm.
is it really it points us to Jesus, obviously, and we're blessed, all this stuff. But the flip side has so much damage. Then like all relational equity wouldn't so hurt, ruin your image of him, and all this. You should have been so hurt if he wasn't
For
kind
sure.
to you.
For sure. Mhm.
And then, kind of going back to the point you made about Jesus, and Jesus would have been the guy to go up to the person standing in the corner at church or who didn't know somebody. He was always, obviously, he's a son of God, but he was always living on mission
Yeah.
when he was, especially we see in the Gospels. And I think sometimes it's so, especially if you're on a serve team at your church, which you should be doing if you're not.
Facts.
Um, when you're on that serve team, I think it's so easy to be like, not necessarily me focused, but talk to the people you already know, and or just like huddle in your community when you're at church, when there's people who don't know the gospel that are at church.
Mhm.
And I have a story, an example of this, and it's almost like a story that's been like 2 years in the making.
Okay.
When I was an intern at Red Rocks, at Young Adults on Thursday nights, I was one of the few interns, if not one of the only ones, who was like on the lobby team.
Mm.
My job was to go and to meet new people. And I could have done it with like a bitter heart, but I loved doing it because I loved going and, trying to invite people in, blah, blah, blah. And there's tons of
Mhm.
testimonies. But there's this one guy and he had like a broken elbow
Mm.
or something, and he was coming down, and he was this low of lows. At the time, I was like 18, and I think he's like I think he was like 29. I had no
Mhm.
I had no clue. I couldn't relate to him at all,
Sure.
and he was so down. But like I was his one friend at church,
Mm.
and week after week, I kept seeking him out. And I did not want to. I was exhausted. Thursday was like the last day of my week, and we would end so late. Youth was the night before, and that would end so late. I was exhausted. But I remember, like, the Holy Spirit, like, just show him kindness, keep being Jesus to him,
Mm.
and I would just let him talk, honestly, and all this stuff, and fast forward, all this time, help him get plugged in, fast forward all the way until this last week, and now he's leading a small group now
Oh,
at
wow.
church.
That's so cool.
I know,
Sweet.
it's crazy. I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
"What the heck?" And I'm not saying, like, "Oh, it was all on me." It was just, like, honestly, his power is made perfect in my weakness because I did not wanna talk.
Mhm.
I didn't wanna be the light of Jesus in any
But you
way.
planted that seed. It's
Exactly.
always planting seeds, and who knows, it'll grow.
And so I'm sure, other people like at his church, did more work than I ever did for sure. And I will like give credit to them for like their labor. But it's
Mhm.
just so cool to like when you give God your yes and you're just like showing the light of Jesus to people, like what that can do for someone's life. Someone who was at the lowest point in their life to then now who's discipling other people. And I'm like, that just blows me away, honestly.
That's really good. Yeah, I love that. I think about right now we're going through the Sermon on the Mount in Bible study, and we're going through Matthew 5:5 is the verse that sticks out to me, and it's blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And so we were diving into what does the word meek mean? And I think a lot of people think that it means shyness or being timid, but really meekness in this context, it's talking about power under control. It's talking about humility. And I think about like if someone were to come up and just try to like cut me with their words, just say something really dumb that was extremely hurtful. I could either like fire back, try to I guess roast them back, or I could be disciplined and be patient and actually like listen to them and answer their question kindly. And I think that, people that are meek, they could like hurt that other person with their words. They could even like physically overpower them, but they don't because they're disciplined. And so I think that this is something that's important for us to pursue as Christians, like meekness, trying like that power under control, having that discipline where it's like we could hurt people deeply with our words. We've talked about our words have power, but instead we like build people up. We decide to be disciplined. We, point people to Christianity or the gospel.
Yeah, and that's the Sermon on the Mount is so special.
Mhm.
I mean, we see Jesus and Matthew is writing, or Levi, little
Uh-huh.
Bible reference, right?
Yeah.
Matthew is writing to a Jewish audience, and he's trying to paint Jesus as the new Moses, and like he is, Jesus
Mhm.
is the perfecter of our faith, and he's giving the new commandment,
Mhm.
and the whole point I think of the Sermon on the Mount is this ultimate heart change, right?
Mhm.
Why kindness? Why anything of Jesus' way is one, it is genuinely so much better,
Mhm.
but it's actually trying to change something in our heart. I know one thing too, like one thing is like forgiveness, and that's a kind of like connected to kindness,
Yeah.
in a way. And kindness or like forgiveness and being kind to those who have hurt you and like, oh, don't retaliate. It's not because Jesus wants us to like necessarily be a pacifist by any means.
Mhm.
It's because it changes our heart and it pushes us closer to
It's good.
Jesus. Because if
Really
you
good.
are unforgiving and you're unkind, you hold on to all this bitterness.
Mhm.
And that bitterness is just rotting your heart away day after day. You don't forgive somebody.
Mhm.
And instead, choose kindness, choose to serve other people. And who knows, like, I mean, there's been circumstances where, man, there's guys that I've in moments hated, but now there's someone who I can serve with in ministry now. Or
Yeah.
there's somebody who I can like I see them building God's kingdom and there's no tension between us anymore. And I like to remember too, like you said, like about people being mean to us, or I think a big thing is like, bro, everyone cuts me off when I drive, and that
Mhm.
like irks me.
Yeah.
And I'm a slow
The worst is when they, like, cut you off, and then they, like, turn on their blinker, and they slow down, and then they start turning again. And I'm like, "What
Not
are you
my thing is
doing?"
like when they're like tailgating me. This happened on the way here today on Federal. They were tailgating me, and then they like shot around me once they had an opportunity, like a quarter mile down the road.
Mhm.
And then they were one car length in front of me at the red light. It's
Yeah.
like, bro, you just wasted all that gas. You're killing our environment, and you made me angry.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Anyway,
It's pain.
so if you're gonna take anything today, don't be a bad driver. Drive the speed limit. No, I'm just kidding.
I think about another example of being kind to others. Something that I've been working on in my personal life is how do I help people through grief? How do I help people that are grieving, the loss of loved ones or, some people that are in our circle, they've been applying for jobs and then they can't get a job. And it's like, how do I help those people through what they're going through? And this is something that I feel like I've grown in quite a bit, and I really sucked at. Like a year ago, I feel like I sucked at helping people through grief, and it's something that I've been working on and going through in my different classes in my counseling degree. Is how do you help people through grief in a kind way? How do you be there for people that are just deeply struggling with what they're going through in their everyday lives? And so I was thinking about this guy, John Deloney. We've talked about him before. He's a therapist. He gets different calls from people and helps them through grief. And he says that sometimes, like, the best way to help someone through what they're going through, to help someone through grief, is just being there with them, sitting with them, bringing Chipotle, not even caring, like, if they're going to eat the Chipotle, just like, here, I brought food. I'm going to sit with you. Let's have a conversation. Let's work through what you're going through. And you don't have to give them answers. You don't have to like logically help them through what they're going through. It's just sitting there and being there with them. And I think that that's so kind, to be a friend who, when other people are struggling, when your friends are struggling around you, you're just gonna go and sit with them. Just be present with those around you. I think that that's like another way to be kind to others, some practical wisdom.
Yeah, that's so good. What do you think about like kind of like going back to like all the way back to the intros, like those who are like roasting one another and like
Mm,
it's kind of getting to the point where it's like, oh man, that like feels like a crude joke.
mhm.
As in the Bible says, like, don't no crude joking. And what does it look like when what is friendly banter okay? When do we show kindness? Who should we
Mhm.
be bantering with? Who should we not? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, what comes to mind first is we were talking in Bible study back to the Sermon on the Mount, and it's talking about how do I control my anger. And back in the Old Testament, it said that like murder, it was obviously wrong. Like don't murder others, and that's still true today. But Jesus, he's going on the Sermon on the Mount, and he's like, even anger, like if you're quick to anger, if you're holding grudges against others, like that's evil. That's not showing a good heart posture either. That could be seen as sin as well. Not as bad as murder, but like anger, it's all about your heart posture. What
So
are you feeling in your heart? And I think that if we're so quick to anger and so quick to yell at others, like I don't know, I was talking to the Bible study guys and I was like, there's never a reason why you should put a hole in a wall, or be hitting things or be, just like yelling at your family. And I think that that holds true even just like at church or anywhere you go to, not being quick to anger. I think that if there's something that's like festering up in you that's making you really angry, just take a step to the side. Just like take a walk, write down your feelings. If you need to take 10 minutes and like walk around to calm down, do that. I don't think there's ever a circumstance where we should be like yelling at people unless it's like, I guess, righteous anger.
flipping
Uh,
some tables in the temple.
yeah, like Jesus was doing because there's like injustice going on around you. But I think that people are just so quick to be angry in traffic or someone says something that like torques them a little bit and they get really angry and want to yell at that other person. I don't think that there's ever a place for that. And we should work on, understanding our anger, understanding our own personality, what triggers us, and figure out how do I deal with that? What are some rhythms? What are some like practical ways that I can get through this and calm down a little bit so that I can be better for those around me.
So that's like someone's like if someone's joking around and like you're in
Mhm,
Bible study, you're at work and
mhm,
they're bantering around and they're just and like it really tweaks you out like and you
yeah,
want to crash out as the
uh-huh,
kids say. That's
mm,
like your response to that. What about it's like you and your friends and they're saying mean things and maybe about or roasting one another or they're
mm.
saying things about other people, like where do you see like the line in that?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the circumstance, but I don't know, if someone were to say something that was really hurtful to me and, like, really cut me deep, if we're going back, like, roasting each other back and forth, and they were to say something that kinda crossed the line, practically, I would probably be the bigger person and just, like, step away and, I don't know, maybe just let them win if it's gonna hold the peace of the friendship
Mm.
or if there's people around who are watching. Like, I'm gonna hold that peace and be the bigger person even though it may hurt my ego in the moment, and then maybe I'll go to that person afterwards, like, alone, talking one-on-one with them and be like, "Hey, what you said really hurt me." But I'm not gonna, like, have an outburst of anger. I feel like that
Yeah.
just shows spiritual immaturity.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, there's only certain people I do it with because
Mhm.
I've done it with people, and I think a lot of people are soft today. That's just and I
Yeah.
think that that's my take, overall, and there's people, like, that I just won't do it with because, like,
Mhm.
I thought we were bantering, and, like, I said something, like, not even that offensive, I feel like,
Mhm.
and maybe there's a blindness in my eye, right? But I feel like that someone said, "Oh, yeah, I have thick skin," and then I, like, made it like a entry level banter joke, and then they were, like, so offended. I'm like, "Okay, we're never going to" like,
Uh,
I'm not gonna do with that person. I'm just gonna show him kindness, yada, yada. Like, with
mhm.
Clay, I can say whatever. I, like, destroy him, and he's
Dang.
laughing. Obviously, there is a line within that, and you just gotta use your discernment, your judgment, and, like, are you doing it around, like, non-Christians, I think, too? Like, if
Mhm.
you're like, don't be legalistic about it is what I'm trying to say, but I think you
Mhm.
just gotta discern who you're doing it around and who you're doing it to.
Mhm.
Like, there's a couple of guys I know I could, like, obliterate, or they could do it to me, and it would be so funny, I think, honestly, like, that's just, like, the
Mhm.
way we, like, communicate with one another, but there's a lot of other guys and gals in my life where I'm like, "Yeah, no, I would never, like, even as a joke, make fun of them because I know it would hurt
Mhm.
their feelings."
Yeah, yeah, it's understanding, like, what circumstance, like, who can I be with different people? And I
Exactly.
think there's wisdom in knowing that.
Yeah.
Knowing the different people.
Do you have any other like practical wisdom you wanna go through on kindness?
Mhm.
I feel like you're like a practical like expert.
No, I mean, I think about just like in your everyday life, just looking for opportunities to be kind to people, whether that's like people that are hidden in plain sight, like waitresses or security guards. Yeah, we were talking about people who are just like in the corner of your church. You know, talk to those people. I think that they're so used to not being talked to by other people or not receiving kindness from others. I think of this story. I worked at a wedding venue growing up. Like my family, they ran a wedding venue, and I remember I was a bartender for like a couple years there. And I remember I was just so overwhelmed making people's drinks and yeah, just like rushing around, trying to hurry, like trying to earn those tips. And I remember there was this instance where there was this one guy who came up and I just remember he was so calm. There was almost a peace about him. And he's like, "How are you doing, man? Like, how's your day going?" And it took me a second to like get out of the zone and just have a normal conversation with this guy. And that had a big impact on me because I was just so in the zone, I guess. And he got me out of it. And he's like, "Man, how are you doing? How are you doing as a person?" And I think that we should strive to do that for others, for others around us, people who are just like in the zone, going from their job. Like it seems like they're overwhelmed. Take a second and talk to those people, calm them down, get to know how they're doing, have an actual conversation with them. And I think that that can go such a long way. And I think back to our volunteers, I think that people, they're so used to living their everyday lives. And when someone comes to them and stops them and is like, "Hey, how are you doing, man? Like,
It's
how's
so
life?
uncommon.
How are you?" I think that that makes such a big impact in
Yeah.
people's lives and actually listen to their response, listen to them.
And
See, like,
remember
how are
too,
you
like
doing?
ask again next week. Let's say they're like, "Oh yeah, like
Mhm.
my dog had to go to the pet
Right,
hospital
you
or
never
the
know what
veterinarian."
yeah,
And then
you
ask him again the
never know
next
what
week,
they're
"Hey,
going
how is
through.
your dog
Yeah.
doing today?" Like
Mhm.
be intentional, and that takes a ton of self-awareness, and you're not
Yeah.
gonna get it today. But people love that intentionality of like remembering,
Mhm.
like I don't know. People hate when you forget their name. Like
Yeah,
no one likes a
facts,
name being forgotten.
facts.
No one likes when you oh like what school do you go to again, or what are you
Mm,
doing with your work? And like you've
yeah.
asked like 5 times. Like I know we're not perfect, but like try to have some intentionality, and that shows like so much love, so much care, so much kindness that
Yeah,
Jesus would have.
especially in a world where it seems like nobody cares about each other, and they're just going about their day to day, so rushed, and the world can be so hurtful to others. When you go to someone and ask, like, "How are you doing?" That's such a big deal in people's lives.
Hmm.
And I think that that's what Jesus would do all the time when he walked the earth.
Yeah, I would challenge everyone today, whenever it is, whenever you're listening, to go out of your way, just one person, and be kind. I should
Mhm.
do it today if
Yeah.
it's early in the day. Do it
Just
today.
have empathy and ask him a thoughtful question,
Yeah.
out of the blue.
And my challenge too would even be within that is like do what someone maybe you don't look like. I think it's easy
Mm,
to be in our comfort zone, and like if you're a straight white male to go to a straight white male.
mm,
Or, like, and I think that's where I have my comfort. It's like guys who look like me. But like get out of your comfort zone and like
mhm.
share the
Meet
gospel
other
for
people.
all people. And
Mhm,
and so yeah, Jesus died for everyone, not just one type of person. So like
mhm.
be the gospel to everybody.
Absolutely. And I know we were talking about, I think it was last week, about praying for others. There's people who are struggling with things, going through things, and they'll share something with you. And, it's great to just always look for those opportunities to pray for others, lay hands on them, pray for them in the moment. And I think that that means so much to people. And it's something that like nobody does,
Mhm.
nobody does in churches, it seems like. And we definitely need more of that, just having that kindness. Yeah. Anything else? Any other wisdom or things that you want to share?
No, just that
Agree.
challenge. Do it. Don't be hearers of the word, but be doers.
Facts.
Don't listen to a podcast, a sermon. Go look at the word yourself, but then go do the word.
Go out and
Go
do
be
it.
God's kingdom.
I love that. That's great. Well, I think I'm going to close this out here. Thank you guys so much for listening. I just looked, I saw we have 15
Come
5-star reviews on
on.
Spotify.
Hallelujah.
That's huge. Leave a 5-star review.
Let's
That-
make it 100.
Yeah, make it 100, 1,000. No, but I mean, that stuff just means like so much to our podcast, and that helps us out so much. So thank you guys for listening. Have a good week. We're praying for you guys, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.